Okay, welcome back. Now, we're going to talk about absolute value, what it means, and then I'm going to show you or explain two rules to use to help you add signed numbers quickly. Okay, so again, it's just adding more tools to your toolbox. Okay, so what does absolute value mean? Absolute value is really, think about it this way, it just means the distance from zero. The absolute value of a number is just saying, hey, how far is this value from the number zero? We don't care about whether it's negative or positive, right? We're talking about distance. So distance is always positive, okay? Think about that. So the absolute value of a number doesn't care about the direction of where you're going from zero. It just matters how many units you are from zero. That's what absolute value means. So the definition of absolute value is this. It just means that, hey, if A is positive, then the absolute value of A is just A. Okay? If A is negative, though, then the absolute value of A is just the opposite of that, which is, again, positive, right? So that goes into the explanation I just gave. So when we talk about absolute value, okay, and I want the absolute value of 3, what I'm saying is, how many units away from 0 is 3? Well, it's 3 units. So the absolute value of 3 is equal to 3. But what about if I say the absolute value of negative 3? Again, I could draw an arrow, right? I could draw an arrow this way, and it's how many units away from 0? It's 3 units away. I don't care about the direction. All I care about is how many units away it is. So again, negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is just going to be positive 3. And that's how absolute value works. Now, how does this help us in adding signed numbers? Okay, so there's 2 rules that will help you quickly add signed numbers. One rule involves if the numbers you're adding together are the same sign. And the second rule is, what if you are adding numbers that have different signs? Okay, and so think in your mind about the arrows. If you're adding numbers that are the same sign, the arrows are going in the same direction. If you're adding numbers that are different signs, then the arrows are going in the opposite direction. Okay, so keep that in mind. So here are the rules. Okay, so rule number 1. Okay, rule number 1 is this, and I'm not going to write it out, but I'm going to say it so you write it. So rule number 1 is if the 2 numbers have the same sign, then what you do is you add their absolute values together and then just give the sum the same sign as the original numbers. Okay, so let me say that another way. If the 2 numbers you're adding together have the same sign, so they're both positive or they're both negative, then all you do is just add the values together and keep the sign. Okay? Rule number 2. Is that if the 2 numbers you're adding together have opposite signs, then what you do is you add their absolute values together. So you basically take their values in absolute value and you subtract them. Largest minus the greatest, or excuse me, that didn't sound right. Smallest from the largest, okay, or the larger number minus the smaller number, right? And then what you do is you give that difference the sign of the larger number. Okay, so let me say that again. For rule number 2, if the signs of the numbers you're adding are different, then what you do is you subtract the two numbers in absolute value. And then whatever that difference is, you give it the sign of the larger number. Okay? So those are the two rules. So, and that will help you add signed numbers quickly if you follow those rules. But those two rules come from the models that I've already done. So again, that's why I mentioned the arrows. You'll immediately see where the adding comes in and the subtracting comes in if you remember the direction of the arrows. Because if the signs are the same, the arrows go in the same direction, and so you're just adding the arrows and it's getting further down that way. If you're different signs, then you have arrows that go opposite directions, and so adding the arrows together is actually subtracting their magnitude. Okay, so that's it. We'll come back and we'll do some examples, and if you're still confused, it will make perfect sense once you see the examples.